Big LEZ'S League, an all rugby league experience.
Hello, welcome back to Big LEZ'S League. This is your official reaction of the Game 3 State of Origin sides going into this decider. Make sure if you haven't already to go ahead and click the subscribe button below. And also, if you haven't already, to go ahead and follow us on all of our socials, the Instagram, TikTok. We are growing substantially across all platforms, so make sure to become a part of the Big LEZ'S League community. Without further ado, let's go through the official sides going into the decider for both teams. We'll start off with points for the Blues and then get stuck into the Maroons as well. A bit of a deep dive into both teams. So for New South Wales going into this decider, we've got Edwards at fullback, Brian To'o and Lomax on the wings, Critter and Best in the centres. Obviously, Critter and Lomax will be on the right side with Best and To'o on the left. Luai Moses in the halves, Jake Travojevic, captain in the front row with Payne Haas, Robson at 9, Liam Martin, Angus Crichton in the back row, Cam Murray at 13, Connor Watson, Isaiah Yeo, Mitch Barnett, and Spencer Leniu on the bench. Matt Burton, technically your 18th man. He has been brought in the squad for Bradman Best. We'll talk about that in a second. As for Queensland, they have named the full 20-man squad. We've got Walsh at fullback, Selwyn Cobbo and Valentine Holmes on the wings, Dan Gagai and Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow in the centres. We've got Tom Dearden and DCE in the halves, Reuben Cotter and Lindsay Collins in the front row with Ben Hunt at 9. We've got Kurt Capewell and Jeremiah Nanai in the back row, Paddy Carrigan at 13. Then we've got Harry Grant, Mo Fodawaker, Felice Kafusi and Callum Ponga on the bench. The 18th man is Trent Liero. We've got 19th man of Brendan Piakura, 20th man Reid Marnie. Those are your squads at the moment for both New South Wales and Queensland. We'll talk about New South Wales first. Obviously, we brought up the point at the start when we were going through New South Wales of Bradman Best. He's got Matt Burton in there at 18th man, just in case there is an injury. He is getting sent in for scans for his hamstring today and tomorrow just to determine what this injury is. If there is a hamstring injury in there, we will see Bradman Best drop out and Matt Burton go into that left centre role, it looks like. They haven't done any mucking around New South Wales. It's pretty much just the 1 to 17, and then obviously Burton coming into the squad just in case Bradman Best obviously gets injured there. But yeah, no mucking around here for New South Wales. They know what 17 they want. Wouldn't be surprised if we get an 18th or 19th and 20th man, I should say, later today. But at the moment, it is just the 17-man squad that has been named for the Blues. I like it. It's very similar to the team that we got, obviously, for Game 2. The only change here is Mitch Barnett going into the bench, and I like it as well. And the reason I like it is because Hamole in that side via the bench just didn't get a lot of game time. I feel like with Mitch Barnett there in this side, obviously coming off the bench, he is going to get more game time because he is more of a front rower. Where did Hamole get brought onto the field? He got brought on through the middle anyway. So having Barnett that can play both quite well, edge back row and front row, he'll obviously get more minutes as well, giving guys like Payne Haas and Jake Travojevic a little bit of a break. And I think it will provide a little bit more impact going through the middle of the field than what Hamole will, obviously, having not played that position very often. He is more of a out-and-out back rower. So having a guy that can play both, depending on how the game goes, I think suits the side a lot better. Look, other than that, no other changes. If Bradman Best is the left centre, it's great for the Blues. If Matt Burton is the centre, it's great for the Blues as well. You get another guy that can do those long kicks, take a lot of pressure off a guy like Mitch Moses, especially if he is getting hammered with kick pressure, which at Suncorp, Queensland wanting to win this series, I imagine that the kick pressure is going to be unreal from Queensland in this game. I think that having a guy that you can go to on the other side of the park in Moses to put up those towering bombs, I think is unreal. And we've seen it in previous seasons as well with Moses in that side to take over a bit of a kicking game as well. So I don't mind both. In terms of who's a more dangerous runner, they're both dangerous runners in two different ways. Obviously, Best provides a lot of speed and strength. He'll bust to a tackle with his strength, and then he's very, very cool, good at just finding that acceleration after contact. Very, very quick as well. We've seen that in last year's game 3 as well, just how quick he is off the mark. He does provide that pace, whereas Burton, his footwork at the line, he's a very good hole runner as well. So he's dangerous in that sort of way. More of like a back row sort of way there on the edge. Just a really good line runner. A very simple job. His defense has improved out of sight this year as well. So, he'd be very safe there on the edge, on that left edge there for the Blues. The only thing that worries me about Burton is that when he has been at centre this year, it hasn't really been the best. In that club for the Bulldogs, he is a 5'8". I think in any other side, or at least in some top 8 teams, if he were to go back to the Panthers or if he were to go to the Melbourne Storm, another top 8 side, I think he would probably be a centre because he is the Dally M centre of the year, obviously a few years back when he was there for the Penrith Panthers. So going back into the centres, I think he'd handle himself in this sort of roster. He's getting a lot of good ball. I think he'd handle himself there very, very well. That's the other thing with him being at centre for the Dogs. Hutcho, Sexton, they weren't giving him the best ball out there as well on that left edge. In the centres, I think that, if he's next to a guy like Jerome Luai, he's just going to almost get perfect ball. And they have a bit of a combination, obviously, being back at Penrith. So, I think that it would work a lot better than him going into the centres for the Dogs. So I think Burton or Bradman Best, whoever is there, I know is going to do a good job. Defensive-wise, they're both very solid. So I back them both if they get into their in there. Obviously, if Best does his hamstring, Burton will go in. So, look, whoever gets the spot, I'm sure they will do a job for the state, and I could almost guarantee it. No other changes here other than Best and Barnett. So looking like a pretty decent team. If they are to name an extended squad, I imagine Hamole Olakawatu is going to be there. I also think that you probably give a younger guy a crack, whether that be a Terrell May and Isaiah Katoa. Wouldn't be surprised if number 20 is Luke Keary again either. We'll have to wait and see if they even do name a 20-man squad. But at the moment, it is an 18-man squad with Burton coming into the squad as a caution, for Bradman Best as well. Let's touch on Queensland because there's definitely a lot more points here for Queensland as well. The first one for me that stands out is Reid Marnie coming into the squad in jersey number 20. Now, there is a little bit of precaution around Harry Grant. There was obviously reports that came out the other day. Not sure if you would have seen them, but obviously with him and a sternum injury, it's why he was rested for the Melbourne Storm on the weekend. And Bronson Garlick, was the number 9 for Melbourne going up against the Tigers. There is a little bit of a sternum injury, which they're watching for Harry Grant, just seeing how he goes. I don't think it's to the extent of what Campbell Graham is battling over at South Sydney, but they are just keeping an eye on him, just giving a little bit of rest to him as well. There could be a few reports that come over the next few days that he just gets rested for a few training sessions and, starts training closer to the game. But they are just keeping an eye on him. That's why Reid Marnie is there in jersey number 20. So if Harry Grant goes down, Reid Marnie comes straight into that 1-2 punch. Also, if Harry Grant's 100% going into this game, Reid Marnie can just get some reps in for Queensland, obviously coming into the squad a few years back, I think in 2020 or 2021. So he does have Origin squad experience, just getting him a little bit more because he will be a player of the future with this hooker 1-2 punch. You'd imagine when Ben Hunt does retire, or when he does retire, obviously they might bring in a Tom Dearden into that 14 role, and Ezra Mam, maybe they go down that route. But seeing Reid Marnie there in jersey number 20, it does make me think they are going to keep this hooker 1-2 punch going. And then the mystical jersey number 17 there with Callum Ponga currently sitting there, which we'll talk about in a second. Maybe they do bring an outside back in that role going into the future anyway, to have those two utilities. But Reid Marnie, as I said, just getting reps in for Queensland. And obviously then if Harry Grant does have to miss this game due to that sternum injury, he can come in as well and do a great job. Reid Marnie's been in some terrific form, just setting up tries, coming in a dummy half with his running game and deception as well with his ball playing. Got one of the better balls out of dummy half. His service is outstanding and one of the better servers in the competition at the moment in terms of service at a dummy half. So I think he's going to do a great job, Reid Marnie, if he does end up coming in. But a great inclusion into the squad. A bit of a mixture of game 1 and 2, the extended benches here. Brendan Piakura and Trent Liero getting spots in this team. Trent Liero, the 18th man, very, very interesting. What I'm more interested about, and obviously you've got Callum Ponga there anyway, so you don't really need the cover, but they haven't really got any other cover for the halves, for fullback and stuff like that in the extended bench. They've got Reid Marnie, who's pretty much an out-and-out hooker, can play a bit of roaming lock if you need him to. You got two out-and-out back rowers here that can play lock or back row, but you haven't really got any cover for halves, outside backs, stuff like that. So they are pretty much counting on that if one of these outside backs goes down or if Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow doesn't have the runs in his legs, they're pretty much fully counting on Callum Ponga to cover in any one of those positions, which is a little bit scary. Obviously, Kurt Capewell can go into the centres as well if that is the case and they bring in one of these edge back rowers to come into the side. But yeah, very interesting that they don't have any other cover in this team. I'll bring that to my next point, which is Kurt Capewell starting over Jaden Sewer. I don't think Jaden Sewer warranted to be dropped. There is word that he might be suspended after the Roosters game potentially, so we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But yeah, look, very interesting that he hasn't been picked in that left edge back row spot. Obviously it must mean that he's suspended, and we'll look at the judiciary report now. But I haven't heard anything in regards to him being suspended. Let's have a look here. Jaden Sewer. Yeah, no, it's just a fine. So I don't understand why he hasn't been picked. He's pretty much been brushed, which is very, very interesting. Definitely not the way that I would have gone. I thought that in spread sets, he's looked very good. His running game's been solid for Queensland. So for him to get brushed for Kurt Capewell, who I thought when came on the field was a bit of a defensive liability and just didn't look that good in attack either. I think the game plan's written here with Kurt Capewell in the back row. I think you target him, and I think that, yeah, as I said, game plan pretty much set, match, written there. Him in the left edge back row. It is a very interesting move, especially when you've got a Bradman Best on that edge too, going up against him. Or it won't be a Bradman Best, it'll actually be a Stephen Crichton because he'll be on the left. So, when you've got a critter running at Kurt Capewell, and we saw it in the last game, it is a bit of a defensive liability. They did have a lot of success going down that right-hand side, and does write a bit of a game plan here for New South Wales too with Kurt Capewell in the back row. Could be wrong. He is coming back from a pretty severe neck injury, and it was the concern going into game one as well. Game two with him coming into the side was that he wasn't going to be up to scratch, and he wasn't. He wasn't too impressive. So I don't understand why he's getting that spot over Jaden Sewer. I don't understand. And look, Billy Slater came out in a press conference and said this is the best possible 17 that you could name going into a decider. Well, I don't really think it is. And, while I shouldn't really be, going against Billy Slater, he's a bit of a genius. He's made some pretty decent calls over the past few years while he's been in the coaching ranks there for Queensland. I'm really baffled as to why Kurt Capewell has been picked over Jaden Sewer, and more importantly, over Dave Fifita as well. Like, I was speaking to my old man today about it. Like, I'd be much more scared of Dave Fifita being in the starting back row or on the bench than I would of Kurt Capewell, than I would really of Felice Kafusi. There's a few guys in here that I probably wouldn't have included in my team. But yeah, look, we'll have to wait and see if it works. Kafusi was very solid through the middle in game two. I thought that he did a pretty decent job off the bench. Mo Fotuaika definitely hasn't impressed me since coming into this Queensland side. I think I'd probably would have gone in a different direction, maybe a Christian Welsh, obviously a Corey Jensen. Then again, you don't want to change up too much either with this side, so I sort of get why they have included him here for game three as well as Felice Kafusi. But yeah, very, very interesting for me. Very interesting, the Kurt Capewell selection. Ponga in jersey number 17. They've gone for that mystical jersey 17 with Selwyn Cobbo, technically with Kurt Capewell as well, now with Callum Ponga. And Callum Ponga's performance has warranted him a origin selection. I'm excited to see where Callum Ponga comes into the game, whether it be in a sort of second 5'8" sort of role on an edge somewhere, like he has in previous seasons. I think that's probably the most likely option. He comes in at left edge back row and just plays a second 5'8" sort of role there. I think that would be the most likely option. But yeah, look, after his performance returning for the Newcastle Knights, his defense out the back at fullback was great. Ran for 200 plus meters. Looked like he had never been out for injury in the first place. And game fitness is not really a concern for Callum Ponga. He looked like he was fully fit, didn't look gassed after that game at all. So Callum Ponga, great pick here. Bit of a scary one off the bench in jersey number 17. Definitely scares me as a New South Wales fan. Where does he come into the game? You've got plenty of X factor in this side, plenty of it. In terms of other points here for this team, we talked about Fifita getting overlooked. As I said, I think that I'd be a lot more scared of a Dave Fifita than Kurt Capewell, but you got to trust in Billy Slater. Obviously, there's a plan there. Fifita, for me, I think definitely deserved a bench spot. His form has been outstanding. He's been one of the informed back rowers in the competition. For him not to be in here is a bit of a head scratcher, especially when you're trying to build for the future as well. You got two older guys in this side, in Kurt Capewell and Felice Kafusi. I'd probably be giving the younger generation a crack and building for the future too. But yeah, look, I mean, the other part of that is you're trying to win now. And if I'm trying to win now, I'm picking Dave Fifita because he can win you games of football. He's that sort of operator. Yeah, look, it's a bit of a confusing one for me as to why he hasn't been in this side for all 3 games. It is very, very confusing. Let's talk about the back line. Obviously, we do have a few new guys coming into this back line. Obviously, Dane Gagai, Selwyn Cobbo coming into the side. We do see Val Holmes move to the wing. I think they are getting Val Holmes away from that left edge of the Blues. I think he's going to be playing left wing with Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow. I think the left side for Queensland will be Hammer and Val Holmes. The right side will be Dane Gagai and Selwyn Cobbo. I think that combination is just deadly. Dane Gagai, Selwyn Cobbo. I mean, that combination scares me more than if you were to put him on the other side with the Hammer. Obviously he'd get a ton of ball on both sides of the park, but it's just a powerhouse combination there of Cobbo and Gagai. I really like it. And then I like a bit of X factor with Holmes and Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow. I think it simplifies Valentine Holmes' role. I'd also be putting him on that left-hand side because that's where he plays for Clubland. He's used to defending more so on that edge. So I'd just be letting him go on that left edge. Defending Stephen Crichton and Lomax is still going to be a mission for him, but I feel like he is going to handle that a little bit better. And just with a bit of experience, he obviously knows he's got great timing when he does go on to put on those shots. I think he'd be able to mark Lomax a little bit better as well. So, I'll be putting him on the other side with Hammer on that left edge for Queensland. And then obviously Dane Gagai and Selwyn Cobbo on the right, I really like as well. And I think that Cobbo would be able to defend Bradman Best and Brian To'o a lot better. With Dane Gagai in there, Dane Gagai is one of the better defensive centres in the competition too. So I think that's a lot better of a right edge for the Queensland Maroons. But yeah, look, a very attractive edges here for Queensland, particularly the back line. It's a very attractive back 5 and a very scary one as well. Reece Walsh gets given another opportunity at fullback. For me, there was no doubt he was going to get picked in this side. There was a lot of doubters in the comments of the Origin Changes podcast that we did. But yeah, look, I was very, very happy with Reece Walsh, just, coming in the big moments, trying to make the big play. For his side, obviously got smashed by Latrell Mitchell going in for that hit up, but there was no one else going in for that hit up. He was the one that put his hand up. He was the one that took that hit up and tried to get his side a bit of momentum. And for that, I credit him. I think that he is such a competitor, Reece Walsh, and it's very attractive to a guy like Billy Slater, who is very much the same, a big competitor. So, Reece Walsh, there was no doubt he was going to get picked for me, and I think that himself and Callum Ponga in this side together, having a bit of a combination going down the left, I think is going to be very, very scary. I really, really like it. There you go. Those other changes for Queensland. Let's see how they go going into game 3. Let me know what changes you would have made. Let me know what changes you like, what changes you don't like, who you would have included instead in the comment section below. And we'll see you guys in the next one.